Hello and welcome to our first Common Ground podcast. I'm Arabella Simmons, and this is a podcast where we debate topics like today's, which is whether it should be illegal or punishable to post and publish fake news.
I was gonna skip that.
I'm here with Grace DeSchaaf. Grace, what's your stance?
My stance is that anyone who posts fake news should be punished, whether it is a big or small punishment.
I believe that you should be free to publish misinformation on the internet. I think definitions are important, so up here I have the definition of misinformation, which is false or inaccurate information, especially that is which is deliberately intended to deceive.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely a great definition, and I don't think that there should be a bunch of misinformation on the internet because, when people are trying to find out what's going on in the world, it's very confusing if you have a bunch of different stories, not necessarily opinions, but different facts and different viewpoints are good, but facts, when they're different, it makes it confusing, especially for things going on in today's world, like in other countries, and it's important to understand what's going on instead of having like a bunch of different scenarios that could be happening.
I agree. I think fake news is definitely makes it a lot more confusing to try and learn more about a subject, but also I think it's important for people to learn that not everything they see on the internet is true and that they have to kind of dig deeper, look into the sources, and learn that social media literacy. I think a lot of that is missing from today's society. Is just we look at something and immediately believe it.
Yeah, I read an article about how some people believe that their favorite celebrity says something, and whether it's an opinion or not, and they just take it to be facts, and that's not always necessarily the case. If someone posts on Instagram that their opinion on something and people read it, they might think of it to be more of a fact than it is an opinion. And people have to understand that opinions aren't necessarily facts, and you need to learn to differentiate those two things and learn to navigate society that way.
I agree. I think having people under the impression that anything they see online is true, which I think if social media said that, we're going to take down any misinformation, that would create kind of a false trust in social media. So then people would not bother to look deeper and make sure and fact check that what they're reading is reliable and true.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And, if people did come out and say that, social media companies, it would also provide more of I think it would also provide more of a trust between what is being posted online, because it's always necessary for you to if you read something, especially when I'm doing a research project, I always read something from whatever source, and then I look it up again, which is just something that we have to do. And I'm not saying that if fake news didn't exist, you wouldn't have to do that, but so let's say I look up something about World War II, and one site says, it took place from this time to this time, and then another site says it took place from this time to this time. That creates confusion when you're trying to figure out details about something, and I just don't know if that's the way the world should be.
I see the struggle of having to filter through the fake news, but I think that if something is outwardly just false, like they're stating a false fact and disguising it as a fact, then the community will, I think a lot of people who post things like newspapers and more esteemed publishing places have an incentive to post real news, because if they post fake news, then they lose trust in their readers. The readers don't trust what they're reading, so they stop reading it. And then that I think we should leave it up to the readers to decide what they want to believe in. And if someone posts fake news, readers will stop reading it, and then they'll either take down the article or start publishing real news. But I think it's something that the community and the people who read it should be able to decide what they want to believe in. And if they want to believe the fake news because they don't want to bother with looking at a second source and fact checking, then that's just something that they have to do.
Okay, but let's say that there are people like that don't want to fact check. Then we have people that are not educated in subjects. So, like...
Educated in the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. So, it leads to misinformation in the world, and I feel like people should be educated about things happening instead of just, they read something on, I don't know, or they watch something on Fox News or CNN or whatever, and then they just believe that and then keep believing that even though that's not correct. Like, what's the point of people learning wrong information?
Okay, well, I guess another reason that I don't want the actual big social media companies to be interfering with what I see on the internet is because who's deciding what gets taken down? Who's deciding what's real news and what's fake news?
Yeah, I guess that comes down to a lot of who's deciding that. It depends on what they believe, whether it's politically or not, which I also think is unfair because opinions and news should be both accepted. And if you have someone that posts something that's veering towards a certain political party, and then the person that's deciding whether to take it down or not is the opposite party, then they might just take that down because that's not what they believe. So I think it's difficult to navigate that, especially when it is towards politics.
It's a very fine line that they're trying to walk here. And I think that giving social media companies the power to take down whatever they deem as fake news is a lot of trust in the social media companies that I don't think deserve or have earned any of. I think a lot, especially during a lot of the world events that are going on right now, there is so much filtering of social media companies just taking down things they don't agree with. So I think, do I wish that we didn't have this problem and that I didn't have to fact check everything and make sure that it's not fake? Obviously, yes, but that's just not the way that the world's going to work.
Yeah, I guess you're right that there's never going to be 100% real news. There's always going to be something fake, whether it's about something in the past or something going on now. So you just have to try to find out how to navigate through that and be educated properly on the right things.
Exactly. I think social media literacy is a big problem, is that people will look at a post on Facebook from a random mom named Susan and then they'll just immediately believe it because they're Facebook friends with Susan.
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot, I feel like, especially with more of like older generations because they didn't grow up with technology like we did. And so they're not always as aware of that things could be fake. Like, we grew up using computers in school. They sometimes didn't. And so I feel like it's especially hard with them because they're just used to everything they're reading being mostly true.
My dad used to tell me that there was a man on the news who everybody tuned in at like 5 o'clock on whatever day it was. Everyone would listen to this man. He stated the facts. He didn't try to push any opinions. And he was the most trusted man in the world. Like, everyone believed him and all the things he said was true. But now with all these different TV stations and all these different news, people are getting their information from so many different places. And it does create a problem of the parents believing everything because they grew up just trusting what the news and the media was saying.
Yeah, I think that goes along with, facts versus fake news versus opinions. Like, there's news that is filtered and has opinions. Like, Fox News is obviously not going to say the same thing as something like CNN just because they're different. And that's fine because people need to see different viewpoints. But I think there should also be places where news is just the facts so that people can just get the facts. And then if they want the opinion, they can go to separate places.
I could talk about this for hours. I feel like a lot of facts usually always try to string facts together to create a narrative that they agree with. And I don't want to see that. I just want to see the facts. I want to see all of the facts, because not everything is just fact or opinion. There are a lot of facts to create opinion and a lot of opinions to create facts. So I think all social media and news stations are trying to push a narrative, and I very much disagree with that. I just want to know what's going on. I don't want to know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I feel like that's true. And, I don't know, I think it's funny because when we're, writing an essay, we have a bunch of these facts, and we just choose the ones that go along with what we think and we're trying to support. And so I just don't think that news should always be like that. I mean, there should be places where there is opinion in the news, because that creates more questions, and also creates diversity, which is sometimes good, because there shouldn't be a time where everyone agrees. There should be places where people disagree, because then they can come to conclusions and maybe even create better solutions. So I feel like, there should be a lot of places with just the facts, but then there should also be places that have facts and opinions.
Exactly. Some people, they look at facts and they don't really know where to go with that. So I think the opinions help kind of give them something to believe in and a conclusion to make from the facts. But that also brings up, if you have a bunch of real facts strung together, you can cherry pick facts, and so many people do it. And you can string real facts together to create a false narrative, which is it misinformation? Do we take it down because it's something it's real facts, you can say that, but it's leading people to believe that something is going on that's not, or vice versa. So it's back to the question of who's deciding what gets taken down, it's how do we know what we should filter? So should we filter out things we don't believe in, or should we filter out things that are false? And what if it's both, and what if it's neither?
Yeah, I guess, it's hard to differentiate what things are false and what things are true when, there's a bunch of facts that you said create, this opinion, and it's hard to decide, is this false, or is this just an opinion that's using a bunch of facts and maybe misinformation to create this opinion that's not always exactly correct.
Yeah, I think it's people's free speech to do whatever they want, and if that's false, then so be it. I think we should trust in the consumer base that they're smart enough to see a blatant lie and can think critically enough to see kind of a hidden lie. And I always, when I believe strongly in a topic, I will listen to a podcast from somebody who believes opposite me, or that's kind of the point of this podcast, so I can debate people who disagree with me. And I always try to see the other side, because when if you're only seeing one side of the news, that's the side you're going to believe in. But I think it's really important to be well-rounded.
Yeah, you have to diversify?
You have
to diversify yourself so that you're not just believing one thing.
Yeah. So I think I agree with you, whereas I wish we didn't have to deal with misinformation, and I wish people were honest. But with today's society, you are either one or the other. There's no in between. So I feel like people are always stringing together an opinion. And I think in today's world, having a world without misinformation is close to impossible.
Yeah. I feel like in these past few years, our country has gotten so divided because of how different viewpoints are that are being, posted and all these things. So I think it's important to kind of have that middle of the road opinion sometimes that just gives facts, but also leans to both sides, so that people understand that you don't always have to disagree about something so severely that people start to get angry, and they just can't take the disagreement.
I wish we didn't have to do this, but I think it's just fake news and misinformation is something that we have to deal with as a society and learn to overcome. And I think if social media companies tried to oversee that and control it, it's impossible. It's a beast that you can't contain. And I think if social media tries to control that, it will, one, make people think that what they're reading is true because they trust the social medias to filter it. 2, it can very easily turn into just complete filtration of opinions that they disagree with. And 3, I think people should be able to post what they want. And I think it's up to the consumers to decide what they believe in and what they want to read.
Yeah, okay. So, like, what happens if, like, there's this big celebrity that a lot of people love and follow? What if they know that they have the power to convince people of what they believe in? So, like, what happens if there's this celebrity that posts, a bunch of misinformation or even, like, a lot of just, like, opinions and things like that? What would you do with that fake news that everyone has seen? And now some people believe because they're like, oh, I trust this person. Like the person that your dad said he listened to and everyone trusted. What if he gave out fake information and everyone believed him because they have in the past? Like, what would happen?
That's a good point to bring up, but also with today's cancel culture, I see a lot of people, whenever they say something wrong or I don't agree with it, but if they say something that their audience doesn't agree with, like, it's gone like that. It's gone,
yeah.
But I think when it comes to influencers with a younger audience who haven't kind of learned to think critically and learn what's real and fake, they just believe everything they see, I think it's kind of dangerous to teach them things that are just completely false because then they just grow up believing it. And it's going to be hard for you to change their minds because it's something that they've believed in for so long.
Yeah, I think that's the trouble with like people our age and even like younger using social media because they don't understand that some things can be false and you shouldn't just believe what you read. You should focus more on other sources and just try to find opinions that you agree with, but also find opposing views because you should not just believe what you read is true and you shouldn't just always take their word for it.
Because they're always telling you what you want to hear.
Exactly.
So, I think in today's world, I think it's again, all up to the viewer. So with cancel culture, if somebody posts something that's completely fake news, the entire world kind of jumps on them saying, hey, that wasn't right. You shouldn't have posted that. You have all these young people watching you, and they're now going to believe that. And that is, I think, where the person will come out and apologize, and then the kids that are watching will say, okay, that was wrong. And also, I think that teaches everyone an important lesson, that if the kids just believed it because the person that they liked said it, then when that person is proven wrong, I think it'll kind of teach the kids and anyone watching that immediately believed it at first that they do need to think critically into their sources before they just believe somebody. Which none of that would have happened had social media just taken it down. Mm-hmm. Then the people who had already seen it would still just go on believing it, and the people who disagreed with it would not see it.
Yeah, I feel like that there's a lot of that, especially like with celebrities and like misleading news. Recently with Will Smith and everything, like everyone believed he was this amazing person. And then like through that, what happened at the Grammys, we learned that like news is completely filtered and like there's a lot of misleading things and we really did just believe what we saw and read and you just kind of have to understand that people aren't always what they seem and that goes with news and just people in general.
When it comes to conspiracy theories, like just out of this world, the earth is flat, like crazy conspiracy theories, I think those are totally fine. Number one, they're fun to the average person who understands basic logic, and to the people who actually create them, I think I think anyone should always question whatever they see. Everything should be questioned. And if they go that extreme of questioning whether the earth is flat or not, then like, okay, that's fine. You're not bothering anybody. Are they spreading fake news? Probably. But again, if you have basic critical thinking skills, you can kind of gather that the earth is round and not flat.
Yeah, I feel like there's crazy conspiracy theories and like, that that's something you can think about, but like just understand that conspiracy theories aren't always true. Like they're most likely, just a
There's
theory.
a reason they're called conspiracy theories.
Yes, exactly. They're just a theory that people made up just to try to understand what's going on in the world.
Yeah. I think everyone should question what they see, and if you go that far into questioning, then like you're not bothering me.
You're over questioning, but
exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what? Questioning nevertheless. I'd rather you over question than not question at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know there was a really good point that you brought up earlier, which is what if somebody accused a celebrity of doing something and then it kind of ruins their life because somebody just came up with a lie?
Yes. So, like, I was actually thinking about this. Like, what if, what happened, I think it was a few weeks ago or whatever, with, like, Will Smith. What if he, like, actually didn't do any of that and someone totally made it up because they hated Will Smith and, like, that ruins his life forever? Like, what?
It is kind of tainted his image.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
So, like, we could just see, like, how much celebrities affect the news and how much the news affects celebrities. So it's just a lot to think about when you think of what you're doing. You have to think of what you're doing before you act out because it can really affect your entire life.
This one's difficult for me because it's like I don't want somebody to be unjustly accused of something and then they end up like everyone just believes it because, again, they believe what they see. There's no proof against it, but there's also no proof for it. So it's just they believe it, and then, boom, that person's, quote, canceled. And I think, I don't know, that one's touchy for me because it's like, how do you prevent that from happening? Because that can also turn into silencing people that have actual issues, and some people deserve to get their career, destroyed because of what they've done. But some people, there are like false, just things that people threw out there.
I think it can also be the opposite too. Like, there's celebrities that have done terrible things in the past, and like because they're so important in their field, the news just kind of and everyone just kind of ignored it and pushed it away. Yes. Like, I have this one example, Tiger Woods. I didn't realize that he cheated on his wife with 120 women.
Oh my God.
And you see, like, no one knows that because he's such a big member of golf that, like, they just, and all his sponsors, like, they needed him.
Yeah.
And so, like, they just kind of pushed it off to the side and mentioned it, but nothing really happened because of it. So
I think when you have celebrities who are filthy rich, they think they're untouchable. And then when they do something wrong, they can just tell their big friends at the news stations and the media that I didn't do that. I promise.
Yeah.
Trust me. Here's $20. Yeah. Like, I think they are untouchable. They need to be put in their place sometimes. And I think that social media is so easy to control. It is so easy to corrupt that it really is all up to the viewer. Mm-hmm. Look into the people that you trust. Look into the sources that you believe in. And look into your beliefs. Look at yourself and reflect on what am I believing? Have I been listening to the right things? Have I been, reading the, real news? And when celebrities do terrible things and then it just gets covered up, I think that just shows a big fault on society. We just trust anything the media says and anything that they don't say. All right, well, I think that our common ground is that it's unfortunate when you have to be in this situation, but
just find facts and then look at opinions and take what you want from it, but always remember that not everything's true. And you need to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think look into what you read instead of just believing it. Yeah. Anyways, I think that concludes our first Common Ground podcast. Thank you so much, Grace, for being here and debating me on this.
Thank you for having me. It was super fun.
This has been so interesting. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.